Hey, this is Banzai. Today we're going to talk about all the different types of screens on cameras, at least the ones that I know about, and say why each one is good and bad. The most common design is that standard flip screen around 90 degrees upwards, maybe 90 degrees or 45 degrees downwards. Works really well for photographers that do landscape photography or any type of work where you're holding camera above you or below you so you can still see the screen at least a little bit. Pretty common design, as I said, but it works relatively well for a decent amount of photographers. Now, it's not really great for some video situations, but it does also work pretty well with some video work. I had a Nikon D750, it had that standard flip screen, and I used it a lot with my hands-on videos at the camera shop where I had a little tripod, flipped the screen up about 45 degrees, and that worked really well. A step up from that is the three-way tilt screen. We see that on cameras like the Fujifilm X-T3, which is a relatively new camera at the moment. You've got the standard tilt upwards and downwards, but then it has another hinge on there to tilt for portrait mode, but only one direction. Another modification to the standard flip screen design is the one that goes 180 degrees forward, basically a full selfie screen. The Sony A6400 that was announced recently as of this video has that type of screen. Now there are some drawbacks, of course, especially with that design. Now that's good for photography if you want to do like straight up selfie photos, but with video you have the issue of if you want to use a microphone, the screen will be blocked by the hot shoe. So there are ways to get around it, of course. Jason Vong had a video on that where he has a bracket, the microphone's on the side of the camera. That works relatively well, but you just need a little bit more gear in that case. Another similar design but relatively simple is the flip up screen. In this case I have the Canon M100 as a single hinge. It flips up. Relatively simple design, there's not much to go wrong in this case. It's got that vlogging selfie type of situation, but then with this specific camera, there's no mic port, there's no hot shoe, so it doesn't have that issue because it just simply doesn't have that functionality in the camera. I actually use this camera quite a bit for B-roll type filming of myself. I have it on a tripod. I flip up the screen and I face it towards me as I'm taking photos of something. Basically, types of footage where I'm not talking to the camera, but I'm filming myself. That works really well in that situation. Pretty simple design. It actually does work for photos easily because you can put it on a tripod again and you'll be able to adjust the screen upwards. Now I have actually used this camera upside down like this so I can still see the screen and hold it above my head in those situations. Of course, everything's kind of weird because you're looking at it like that, but it does actually work. The weirdo of screen designs, the flip down screen. If you are going to do some type of vlogging, actually the Canon EOS M5 has that flip down screen. The Olympus, it's called the EPL7, it also has that type of screen where you can hold the camera, you don't use any type of tripod, hold it out and use it in those situations where you're filming yourself. But I have seen some videos where they take a little bracket and they move the tripod over so that you can still pull the screen down and also get a tripod connection. Another unusual design, I'm going to mention it, the Pentax K1 has a flex screen. I'm not really sure what it's actually called, but it has 4 different metal hinges in the back. It gives you a lot of articulation, it gives you vertical, but it's a very intense design with not really a big difference over, say, the 3-way tilt screens that the X-T3 has and all of that. Again, I've used the K1 maybe 2 times for a few minutes, and it's an unusual design, but maybe people who have used that camera more can really say if it's good or bad, but it exists. Last but not least, the fully articulating screen. In this case, I have the Canon EOS M50, pretty standard, fully articulating, vari-angle screen. You've got the adjustment here, you have it able to adjust here, so a lot of options with this screen. Now it's not perfect, even in vlogging situations where it's a good use case. The issue, at least with me, is that I have to really force myself, train myself to look at the lens instead of the screen. When you have it out like this, Even in my last video, I was looking at the screen some of the time, so it's not ideal. You probably want to push it back once you start recording, which kind of defeats the need for this. Once you're recording, you're basically relying on autofocus in that case, so it is not a 100% need with vlogging, but it is nice to have. And even in photo situations, you've got all of the articulation that you would want most likely. You can do any type of portrait orientation, any type of landscape orientation that you would want, and it's got that. You can put it backwards, face the camera itself. In this case with the M50, it will turn on the EVF automatically, even if you have the settings to only the back screen, which is really convenient if you want that straight up camera, you know, standard camera without any type of screen. You just got the EVF, so that is really convenient. But I think it is one of the best designs out there at the moment. It isn't perfect. You have some more potential of having it damaged because it's out away from the camera. In a photography situation, it is slower than the standard screens. So that's probably one of the biggest negatives for straight photographers, is that they have to spend the time to mess around with the screen, pull it out, and whatever else. But overall, I think it's a good design and probably one of the better ones out there. Maybe not so much for the photographers. So with the photographers, there are definitely a lot of YouTubers and people that make videos about gear on YouTube. They're very focused on video work because that's what they do. That's what I do. A lot of is make videos. So screens like this are very helpful for our work, but it's not really considering the straight up photographer, because I think some standard flip screens are better for photographers in many situations, but it's just things to consider, trying to be considerate to straight up photographers when suggesting gear. And like I said, straight up flip screens are more convenient for landscape photographers, maybe not so much the portrait ones except for the X-T3 type of screen, but things to think about. There are a lot of different designs. Really look at the design and see what type of photography or videography you do and see if it works best for your situations. So that's about it about this big talk with screens. There's a lot to it, a lot of designs. Again, hope you enjoyed this video. Scott from Photography Banzai. Thanks.